I love it when it all comes together. So while we wait until it's 7 o'clock, just how's everyone's day been going?
Awesome. Excited
Good.
now.
Nikita, you?
Social services life is real. That's all I can share at this point.
Woo.
Purpose, you?
Hey, look. Oh, can you? Oh, you can relate to that, sir?
I have an idea of what social services has to deal with and go through. So my heart
Okay.
goes out.
Thank you, dear. When I call him sustainer, hey, I'm so serious.
Yes. Oof.
I can only imagine, especially now.
Yes. That's what I'm thinking because now
Right?
it's so complex now.
Yes, with all of the ins and outs and the changes with the COVID regulations, it's nonstop
Yeah.
and
I
it's
Yeah.
think
switching at the drop of a dime. So thank you all for your continued prayers and support because it's real out here for so many people. And just like you were saying, Karen, this conversation is so on point, especially when it comes to the men, because I'm running into so many alpha males that refuse to admit that they might actually need some mental health and wellness,
yeah.
a checkup, so to speak.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's so true. And I think a lot of us has probably had more interactions than we care to admit or even realize
Yeah.
with people that have had some mental health issues and they don't know it and we don't know it. So,
Mhm.
you
Look,
know,
I think we're getting started before we even.
we
And most
are.
important,
me,
sis,
me, 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 me.
most importantly, they don't know.
Yeah,
That's the. Thank you.
right. That's it. So before we getting ahead of ourselves. So
Yeah.
before before we get started, I just want to introduce Dr. Purvis Taylor III to the Curled Queens and our session today where we are talking about men's mental health. And I'm gonna brag a little bit about Purvis for those who don't know him. It's okay, Purvis. It's okay. So, Purvis Taylor III's purpose in life is to help men maximize their potential, master their emotions, and thrive in the lives of their dreams. As an award winning celebrity life coach, inspirational speaker, mentor, and author, Purvis travels the nation delivering his uplifting message to crowds large and small. Born in Dallas, Purvis earned his Bachelor of Business degree from the University of Miami, then relocated to New York City, whoop, whoop, to pursue a career in the entertainment industry. While he quickly found success as an actor and model, appearing in feature films, commercials, and print ads, Purvis always felt that he had a higher calling. After much soul searching, he realized that helping people was his true purpose in life. He began to compile the wisdom he had acquired into his first two books, Purvis Principles 1 and 2, both of which became international bestsellers. While keeping up this tireless schedule, Purvis also found time to complete his master's in psychology from Columbia University. Yay! And write a new book called Survival Mode.
Yeah.
Specifically aimed at men, the book expands on Purvis's revolutionary views of emotions and mental health. Purvis currently resides in Brooklyn, New York, where he devotes every day to improving his own life and the lives of the people around him. So, if you haven't already purchased the book, so Thrival Mode, I encourage you to do that. Run, don't walk. It's a quick read, but it is packed with nuggets throughout the entire book.
Wow.
And so, welcome, Purvis, to talk with us with the Curled Queens. So, Karen, you want to just give like I don't know, like a minute just to introduce yourself?
Yes, making sure I'm off of mute. Oh, the one wonderful things of Zoom and technology. I'm Karen Sims, owner and principal of Twisted Threads, and I am excited to be here to talk and be a part of our Curl Queens. As we talk about, I am a mom to five, one daughter, four boys, grandma to eight, grandma, me. Beat me to 8 children. Okay, I'm too fly to be sitting down somewhere.
Okay.
8 grandchildren, 3 girls and 5 beautiful boys. And so this conversation today is especially important for me as since I took that, be fruitful and multiply. Now we got to make sure that they are okay and stay okay for generation to generation. So Twisted Threads, I serve as a master life coach and a goal success coach, as well as a professional and personal development coach to help us achieve our best selves. Whether you're living your best life or not, you got to be the best version of yourself before you push forward. So passion is and what I enjoy doing. And this is just a wonderful time that we get to share knowledge with each other across multiple platforms. So collaboration is what I love, and this is what we're here to do. So we welcome everybody. We're just happy y'all.
Yes. Awesome. Nikita?
Yes, I am Nikita Hansford. I am owner and principal operator of the Tilted Halo Tribe. I am also a radio personality that goes by the moniker Tilted Halo. Why Tilted Halo? Because I have so many questions. Okay? Now, I'm also a graduate of the School of Hard Knocks, this thing called life. So my experience has been birthed hands on. I'm a mother. I am an experienced entertainer. I am an author, a humanitarian. I am a mentor. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. And as these ladies have recently established, I am a safe place for so many others to be welcomed and allowed to be exactly who they are as they work through their processes in developing some serious mental health and wellness goals and boundaries. I recently had a conversation with someone who mentioned a boundary that I attempted to establish as control. I says, well, we all have a right to control our own peace, right? So what you see as control is just me establishing a boundary and making it very clear. So that's really what I'm all about. Tilted Halo. Stay swagged out.
Tilted out. I love it. So Purvis, I'm going to kick it off because I'm going to ask you one question. I have no idea where it's going to go, but we're just going to flow. And the one question that I have for you that's going to start off is, what is one major misconception that you would like us to know about men's mental health through all your research and just the talking and dealing with men all over the world? What is the one misconception you would like us to know?
Well, I think the most obvious is that men are emotional, and that we have emotions and we struggle within them, just like everybody else, just like human beings, across the planet. I think that's the biggest misconception, is that men don't feel. We do feel. A lot of times we just don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to identify it. We don't know how to process it. So therefore we do suppress it. But we do have the emotion there.
Yeah, I love it because you do think about, when you think about men, it's like when Nikita or Karen, which one said the alpha male. So you think about this, I'm just big and strong and brr. And so as a result, you don't feel.
Yeah.
Right?
That's part. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but I was going to say, but there's this exterior that, men feel like they have to put up because I can't cry, or even communicating their emotions.
Yeah. And a lot of times I think people don't understand is that a lot of times men don't have language. They don't know the definition of the emotions that they're experiencing. And when you think about alpha male, you think about toxic masculinity, or just hegemonic masculinity. It's like the parents of toxic masculinity. It's all about dominance and aggression, right? Typically it's okay for a man to be aggressive, but it's not okay for a man to be hurt. And so that's the culture that we live in, that's been cultivated. And so a lot of times men who have those real emotions of hurt or whatever other emotions that they may be experiencing, they're not allowed to, in order to survive in their minds, in order to be accepted, in order to be respected, they have to take on the cloak of aggression or the cloak of not feeling.
And so I just want to ask you, so normal as a female, right? I'm thinking about, when I think about men's mental health and I think about men's emotions and how they express themselves, obviously I'm thinking about how they express themselves to the opposite sex, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But
Yes.
there's also how they express themselves to other men.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing is like, again, it goes down to that language, right? It's like, I can understand what a brother is sharing with me, but oftentimes the women don't understand. But again, I think it just boils down to the language. And, I say this all the time, your healing is in your words. And the reason why I'm such a proponent for therapy is that therapy causes you to speak, and it causes you to contextualize your thoughts and to structure your thoughts. And a lot of times men just don't have the language. They don't have the wherewithal to construct thought in a streamlined manner around what they're experiencing. And so, when other people think and operate like how you operate, you understand that language. So, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you're from Mars, right, which they simply say men are from, right, we understand Martian. You guys are from Venus, y'all understand Venusian.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's so true.
We are on the wavelength.
That's so true.
I love it. I want to jump in here because you brought up the question about therapy, and so my thought is just, how do we help normalize the thought of men going to therapy? Because I think that's like one, whether we just consider Black men or just all men in general, it's one of those things when trauma comes, or even before trauma, to kind of do our preventive maintenance. How do we normalize the thought of therapy being okay, being necessary, and as you said it, kind of helping in a sense? So how do we make it not a bad word?
Well, I think it's all about exposure. People think to the level of exposure. And I think it's important for them to see the benefits of therapy in somebody that they can relate to. So for me, someone who's gone through therapy, who sees a therapist currently, I can tell you about the things that I've been through, but I also can tell you the byproducts. Like I'm the person I am today because of God's grace, number one, but because I was able to go to therapy and be able to process things. So I'm evidence that therapy does work. And I think it's about showing them, modeling, right? It's about exposing them to things that are, people who've gone through the process, and literally creating those safe spaces for men to be vulnerable, right? I think that's the biggest one. It's like, one of the reasons why I'm so successful in the work that I do is because I believe that transparency creates an environment for sharing. So I'll say off the bat, I've been molested. I dealt with suicide ideation. I dealt with a father dying of a heroin overdose. Like, I don't have an issue talking about the things that I've struggled with or the things that have hurt me in life. And so when I create that space, it creates an environment for sharing, and only what you confess can be healed. And so, like, even in that moment of them just within that space, there's a healing that's taking place. And so then I can come in and say, like, well, the reason how I got to where I'm at is through therapy. And so it's about just creating those safe spaces.
How do we, as the partners, and I hope this wasn't one of your questions, Karen, because it just came to me, because I'm just thinking,
we are flowing.
When you were talking about men are from Mars and women are from Venus, I know from being in a marriage that you often think, it took me a long time to realize that we don't speak the same language. Absolutely. We don't think the same. We don't process information. It took me years to figure it out. Because I'm thinking, well, if I'm walking into the room and I see, the dirty mess, you should see it too. Or whatever it is. Like, if I'm thinking, if I'm a planner, just naturally, I'm a planner. So if I'm thinking about whatever event that we're going to, or whatever event I have to go to, immediately I start thinking backwards, right? Like, if we have to be there at 10, that means we gotta leave at 9. That means we gotta get to us at 8, right? I just go back and I start doing that, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm doing that. That means you're doing that too. So
No.
it took me a long time to realize that men don't process the way that we don't process information.
It
And
takes a long time for a man to process. And I often tell wives or partners, um, if you want to talk to a man about something, give him a heads up and pick a date to talk about it. Don't
mm,
talk about it within that moment,
right,
because he is not going to land the way you want it to land. So if you're like, how are we going to afford this child? Let's talk about it next Wednesday. That gives him time to think about it. That gives him time to process. That gives him time to construct his thoughts. It gives him time to really, sit and really ponder and create and come up with an answer. I think that's a simple step, but I think it's so helpful.
yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I love when you said that men don't have the language to
Yeah.
express their emotions. I love that. And how do how do you get them to find their voice in that way, right? Find their emotional voice and find that language, because men can be so stubborn.
Yeah, I think it's about teaching them, like, deconstructing an emotion, right? So this with anger, anger is a secondary emotion. The primary is hurt. And then showing them just the pathology of their anger. So you're really hurt because you're disappointed because the expectation wasn't met.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's taking them through, it's that simple exercise is taking them through the process of the pathology of their emotion. Therefore, they can kind of come up with ways to describe how they're feeling. If they don't know necessarily the emotion, they can at least describe it. And I feel like that builds connection. So for instance, I teach men how to speak in sensory language. If you look at Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, it's loaded with sensory language. He talks about the red mountain, the red mountains of Georgia. Let's sit at the table of brotherhood. Let's eat together. Like, all those things appeal to the five senses, right? And so I teach men to do the same thing. If you can't come up with the actual emotion that you're feeling, at least be able to come up with some sensory language so that your wife or partner can connect with what it is you're trying to say.
Hmm.
Mm, that's really, really good stuff. And in looking over your body of work, especially within the New York City school system and the work you've done in that environment, I had a question just pop right into my head for you. And actually, it's not necessarily a question. I would like you to please elaborate on your perspective on the dehumanization of black men.
Oh, gosh. Do we have enough time? Um,
We got about 30, 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the
but
last
what,
question.
That's gonna be the last question.
you know what? I think I have many, many thoughts, but the thing that comes up for me the strongest right now is the thing that I try to do with black men is try to get them to be in touch with their humanity. Like, we're human beings before anything else, and
Yeah.
everything is an extension. And I think that's the one thing I share with men is like, yo, you're a human being, so you're entitled to be whole. You're entitled to be, happy. You're entitled to have joy. And when I think about the structure, right, the system that's in place to tear that, to strip us away from that, it pisses me off, number one. Um,
Yeah.
but
Tell us how you really feel.
it pisses me off, but then it makes me more intentional about the work that I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It makes me want to be more forthright and more dynamic and more in your face with it. Like, no, I'm going to help brothers to be whole. Like, I'm going to help men they're going to live out their birthright of humanity and thriving, period. They're going to live out the birthright of abundance. I don't care that the system is in place for us to be dehumanized, right? What I care about is that we have life happening from us. Life happens to us, but life happens from us. And so, like, my thing is I want to teach men, like, yo, life happens from you. You can create the life that you want. You can thrive. You don't have to become that narrative, because I didn't become that narrative. It was things in place for me to be dehumanized. It was systems in place. It was things,
Yeah.
but I differently, right? And so if I can choose differently, if I can thrive, if I can overcome the things that have tried to overtake me, and I'm still overcoming those things, right? Because we're never finished, right?
Right.
But if what's true for me is true for them. And so for me, it's like that's just a challenge, right? That's just a roadblock. the dehumanization, but that's not going to succeed if we choose for it not to succeed.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Karen.
One thing that, really just comes to mind, and a lot of what we're talking about is, some men having the language, some men being taught, but then for whatever the percentage of our men not having the language. And it kind of goes back to the, we definitely, this one, brothers, this is not a male bashing hour. And so we are here to try to figure out how do we understand better, but also what is it that maybe we can bring forward to our brothers' minds for thinking, for things that we can do differently. Like you said, Purpose, we got another day, we're here, so we're doing something great. My question is, and for you, Purpose, and Queens, if you all want to chime in as well, is what do we do? Kind of, I'm thinking of, and I think it was Frederick Douglass, that it's like build strong boys versus repairing broken men. I'm probably getting it all wrong, but you get the point of it. And so it really comes to mind to my thought, what do we do with our children now?
Yeah.
To learn the language that maybe their fathers and grandfathers are just coming into play. So how do we make it better for the generation now, so that they, maybe are in longer lasting relationships, that they don't get on our last nerve, that we learn Martian and they learn Venetian, all of that stuff.
I think something as simple as like, don't siphon off their emotional experiences.
Yeah.
Something when you tell a boy, like, stop that crying. You know what I mean? Like, something that, like, boys don't cry, or you whining, you sound like a little girl. Like, all of that stuff that we do that we think is helping, we got to stop that.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing that we teach them, though, here's the thing I teach my nephews. I said, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to feel what you feel. Just don't make any decisions off of your emotions. And I talk to them like they're adults. I say to them, I'm like, listen, I know you're mad right now, but just because you're mad don't mean you're supposed to throw your toy, because then I'm going to get it.
Right.
Consequence.
You know what I mean? There's a consequence to making decisions off your emotions, right? And so, like, that's the conversation. It's like, I'll never tell my son or my nephew or any young man in my life they can't be emotional. Yeah. My thing is, just don't make any decisions based off of it.
Yeah. What I have done is I have just recently, because I have, like you, Karen, I have a male son. I'm raising, he's an adult now, but I've raised already a male child.
Get what you get at this point.
Now the parenting changes. When you have an adult, your parenting changes, you're no longer raising them. But so I am always aware of talking to him about being aware about his circumstances and being aware of what's going on, because even when we were young, we go through things in life, like when you have a child, or if you move, if you lose your job, if you have a death. When these things happen, they pull on us emotionally.
Yes.
Right. And we have to stop and process things that are going on in our lives and realize how it really is impacting us. And in some cases, how we're not feeling it, because you don't want to feel it, right? Because it's just too much to feel. So that's my message to all people, right? Young people, but especially to men, that it's okay. Just stop and think about what you're going through. Think about how that impacts you right now. Think about if you were going through one thing at a time, like if you're, I don't know, if you were dealing with, you had to care for a parent that's sick and bring them into your home. That's a lot on its own. That's a lot. But if you're dealing with that and you lost your job, to just stop and say, wait a minute, these are two compounding events that are happening in your life, and think about how that affects you. So it's just bringing awareness to life events and how they can be impacting us.
That was good. And that no emotion is bad.
Right. It's okay. Feel it. It's okay. Feel it.
That's a good point.
Right. I know for me personally, I have spent 32 years raising my two adult daughters, okay, teaching them consequence. I grew up in a household or in a rearing environment where I was basically taught that children are to be seen and not heard, and we were not allowed to ask questions. Why y'all think there's a Y in Tilted Halo? Because I decided to change that narrative, and I allowed my children to ask me questions. And even when I didn't feel like it, I sat down and I took the time to listen to them and explain to them every possible outcome that they could face with a choice that was solely theirs. I began to teach consequences. And, it's evident in my two children that, they both process the information differently, but they both had the same results. They're both actively living the consequences of their actions to date.
Yeah.
I think that's very important, and I hope that my oldest daughter continues to take that into the next generation through my 3 grandsons and my 1 granddaughter. I'm a glamour out here too, y'all. I forgot to say that at the beginning.
Aren't we all? Aren't we
Yes.
all?
But yeah, a lot of this.
I said y'all are all beautiful grandmas.
Thank you, dear. And part of that for me was in my spiritual journey, I began to chase a generational curse. And when I got the concept, there's a generational curse. What?
Yeah.
Some of this stuff is in my bloodline.
Yeah.
I had to go back and dig deep to uproot so I could be the change, or at least a pivot point in my bloodline for future generations to come, that they would know that they have a right to ask questions, that they would have a right to feel what they feel, say what they say, because I've learned venting is very healthy.
Yes.
Absolutely. And you just said about generational curse. I think for a lot of Black families, there's a generational curse of suppression.
Yes.
Right? And not dealing with emotions for the sake of survival, right?
Right.
But to different, right? Now for the sake of survival, we have to deal with our emotions. So it's like the pendulum has swung, right?
Yes.
From the depression now to like, we have to deal with our emotions, because if you look at the suicide rates, you look at the depression rates, you look at all of those rates, they are alarming. And before the pandemic, believe it or not, the fastest growing suicide rate was in boys 5 to 12.
Really?
Absolute truth.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that goes back to, where I started with the conversation of how do we kind of normalize and what do we say differently. And one of the things that, I do, and I am a mother of 1 girl, 4, but we just got a bunch of boys. We're just gonna say that. And the challenge that came to me was, the way that I raise my sons, I don't raise my grandsons. Now, my children call that me being soft. That's not what I call it. I'm more enlightened now. So the things that I did, and I said, I was guilty of that, shake that off, don't cry, boys do this and boys, but do they really? And so the more, it's like, the more we do, the better we do. So, we know more and we try to put it out there. But now with that new information, we're now not just talking about the generation of our partners or our children, we're also influencing grandchildren and trying to a certain extent, break that curse. Because many of our homes, and I'll just say for me, we had men around. It wasn't like, there were no men around. The men were around. And they stayed in that one room together. Bother us, okay? So we had to normalize, how do we make space and not always, because like some of this is on us. So we're talking about the men finding the words for their emotions, the men doing the work, but some of us as sisters, as queens, have some work to do as well. I don't know who it was, somebody sent me a video today saying how often women discredit not just Black men, but men in general, but we'll talk about Black men because, I washed and this still is on here. So Black tomorrow. But with that, it was like, well, Black women don't always know how to make a space for our men to travel through this journey. So, we often have unrealistic expectations of you're supposed to be Denzel and Morris and Terrence and who else?
Jay-Z, because he got money.
Oh,
Right.
Jay-Z. Okay.
And
So
that's
you
the,
supposed to be all of them together, probably
yeah,
too, because he got a whole bunch of land and I get to act
right.
up. He is. So we see these things and we bring them home to us where we know that's like 1%. That's 1% of the community, but we're basing our whole lives on either the men that are staying in the back of the room because they don't want to be bothered with it. And then when they come into the front room outside of getting their plate and a big piece of chicken, how do we help in our sisters make
Yeah.
space for our men to evolve in those spaces as well? So that's kind of a thing that just came to my mind is it's not all wrong when we hear well, y'all do this because some of us can, and on the other side of that, men who do this, some of the men do. So we understand that the demographic and the percentage on both sides changes, but
Yeah.
how do we make the space for our brothers, and how do we support them in that way?
I think one of the biggest things is to, I always say this, like people can tell if you're listening with judgment or with empathy, right? People can tell how you're listening to them or how you're hearing them. And I think one of the things that especially in 2021, we got to understand that people have passed, people have been through experiences that you may not experience, right? Or have any familiarity with. I think one of the things we have to be radically non-judgmental in creating those spaces and what is being shared in order to create that bond, right? Because I share this with women all the time. There's like a small window of opportunity for a man to be vulnerable. And if it's compromised, that window will never open up again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And so like you have to, if you want to have that, create that space, then you also have to change the narrative you have yourself about how a man is supposed to be in your mind, right? Because you have to create that space. So if a man tells you like, yo, I was molested when I was 5 years old, you have to be able to be present and not judge, not have any questions in your mind, just be available for him to share that with you.
That's hard.
Life. And this is real life, right? These things happen.
Yeah. More probably than we know, right?
Yes.
Because it's happening more than we know, because these men are not speaking about their experiences yet. We see the consequences of it. We deal with the consequences of it every day, of these unspoken experiences. And it's very, I think as the partner, as the woman, it's difficult to make room because we got our own stuff, right? Because we've been, we've been groomed to be, don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. You keep your own money and make sure there's a rainy day. And, we got all this stuff in our heads, right?
Behavior. Right?
In our generation that we have, so now we it's unfortunate, but we've been taught to be separate and not be a union, and that
is ultimate intimacy when you're able to share your brokenness with one another and you be accepted. That is the greatest intimacy to me, more so than sex, because that's really the truest you showing up.
Absolutely.
And, you know what I mean? So like, to me, in creating those spaces, right, what you just shared, Audrey, was so powerful, right? Because I didn't even think that, right? But as you were sharing, I was like, yeah, they're working through their narrative as well. And we're working through ours, right? But if we go beyond our borders and get to that place of intimacy to be able to create those safe spaces, I feel like you're going to create a stronger bond in the marriage.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Definitely. It definitely. Nikita, go ahead. You go.
Well, I'm just sitting here loving both of what you're saying. I'm like, wow. And the only thing that's popping in my head is making sure that we are present when we're trying to create these safe spaces for the men in our lives to be transparent. I know in some of my relationships, especially in my male friends, I make sure that when they say they want to talk to me about something, put that phone down.
Yeah.
Again, to what you said, Purvis, that window is only open
Yeah.
a limited amount of time.
It's like this.
It's really.
You got one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. Hello.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I've come to learn that being 100% present is key in establishing effective communication when trying to build a friendship that could possibly blossom into a relationship.
Yeah.
And never bring up it in anger, what they share with you in vulnerability, because then that's, never weaponize. And that's for on both sides, never weaponize each other's trauma against each other, and I definitely, and I've spoken to women. I've been in packed rooms with women, and I said, how many of you have done that to your man or to your husband? And like literally like 80% of them raised their hands.
Wow.
And not knowing that, and they were just doing it just to protect themselves, right?
Right.
That's just, what I mean? It's a natural response, but not realizing that was so traumatic to him. And that's part of the reason why he ain't fully came back. You know what I mean? And so, but I think it's just a journey, right? And just being willing to be teachable. I think that's the best thing, is always be teachable. That's the best advice my mother gave me. She said, you're always a student of life. You may be a teacher every now and then, but you're always a student of life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just what it is. We can't look at ourselves with judgment. We made mistakes, but we got to be curious, right? We're filling this journey out. And so like, I think that's the thing too, is not look at this thing as like pressured, but look at it from a exploratory, out of curiosity, as opposed to like, oh, I got to get it right. I got to get it right. I got to get it right. Because you're putting so much pressure on yourself. Right. And you're not being the true liberated you. Right. And so if you want him to be the liberated him, you got to be the liberated you as well. And so like, that's really what it's about.
All right. I think it's just you and I right now, Purvis, but to what you were saying.
I'm here as well.
Oh, you back?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, I see. Look, wait a minute. Wait. Audrey is still on froze. So while she's on froze, I just want to go ahead and acknowledge a couple people that I see that have hopped on into the chat room. We see Dr. Lamar Spencer and Olu Asade. I'm not going to jack up your name on the live tonight, but I see you, sir. Thank you so much for chiming into this conversation on tonight. I think is very necessary, especially amongst our brethren, again, who have been taught for so very long that they don't need or have the right to express how they're really, really feeling.
And that's the thing. I like that you said the need versus the right. They have the right first, and then the need. You know what I mean? And I think that's the powerful thing. It's like, as a human being, you have the right to work out your issues. You need to work out your issues, but you first and foremost have the right.
Can you say that one more again for the people in the back?
Back row.
You have the right to work out your issues. But you need to work out your issues. But you have the right, first and foremost, to deal with your issues, but you need to work out your issues, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Awesome. We're giving shout outs. We see our friend Hasiel watching with us, and Alfred, see you as well. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're trying to reach our brothers today because, it's more about just what's right or what's wrong, but we want to know what's best for you so that, we create spaces where we all are healthy. And I think that's one of the things we talk a lot of times with our Qurled Queens of, what's going on in our lives. And so today we've made space to hear, we brought that XY in here so we can hear something and also take the opportunity to learn, not just for us, but to get the information to all of you. So whether you're a sister, a brother, auntie, a cousin, or friend, we have to understand that we are allies with one another. So it's not we're coming in here to bump heads. We are here to help each other. So, when we think about partnership or even a marriage, we think about putting that other person first. And a lot of times we sometimes miss that in friendships or other relationships. But when we get the chance to put the other person first, as long as they respect the fact that if they're putting me first and I'm putting them first, guess what? We both are head of the line, and nobody gets lost in the translation of what's going on. And that's super important when it comes to how do we create a space for paying attention to mental health. But also, we talk a lot. I know our sister Audrey with You Unlimitedly talks a lot about self-care. And that's something that we don't hear a lot from our men. So whether it is them talking, whether us talking about them going to therapy, but what are the good things that our brothers can do for themselves to, now I know, you know, when we get a fresh cut or a new do, that does something to our sisters. We get our hair and our nails. That retail therapy is listen, honey, it's a thing. But what would you kind of prescribe for our brothers to kind of take out that time, and what might look like self-care to some of our brothers that are on the line with us today?
Well, I think one of the first things is like, you know, I like what you just shared. I think that was so eloquently stated. I think for Black people in general, we have to rebrand our relationship with wellness and mental health anyway, as a community, right? We have to stop looking at it from an illness and broken place and more from a place of wellness and maintenance. So number one, rebrand your relationship with mental health, with wellness and things like that. But things like you said, things that, you know, it's true, when you look good, you feel good, right? You know, doing things like making sure you keep up hygiene, right? Hygiene is so important. Getting your haircut, getting your nails and feet done. I tell brothers to get that done all the time. Get a massage. Our bodies hold so much trauma. Our bodies hold so much pain. It holds so much memory of negative things, right? Massage that stuff out. I think it's important for brothers to get massages, because so much tension, think about it, the weight of the world is on our shoulders, right? You think about it, we carry so much tension in our shoulders.
Through here.
Yeah, all through here. So we need to get massages. Exercising is great. Drinking lots of water is good for the brain. Eating vegetables, eating clean, you know, I obviously do things in moderation, right? I mean, I'm not telling you to become a vegan or vegetarian flat out, but be mindful of the foods that you eat, because all of that stuff does have an effect on us. If we're depressed, when people are depressed, they eat more chocolate. You know what I mean? Like, it's true.
Well, for me, it's like baked macaroni and cheese or sweet potato pie.
Right, but
chocolate is currency in my world.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, just doing things.
Yeah.
Doing things. And I always tell brothers, you know, like, have a playlist. Have a playlist of songs that make you feel good.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's true. Like, whenever I'm down, there's certain songs I listen to, like, if I listen to Michael Jackson, Off the Wall, I cannot be sad listening to Off the Wall by Michael.
Right.
I just can't. You know what I mean? Even if I don't get a full smile, I may get like a little half a smile. Like, but it's better than what the position I was in before, right?
Your attitude is half gone by the time you're done listening to it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Exactly. So, like, it's so many things that men can do that are not expensive, right? That are within your reach. Because I think when we think about self-care, you got to think about things that you know you're going to do. Because it sounds sexy and cute to be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to ride in the park, I'm going to do this. And but do you have time to go to the park?
Exactly.
That part.
You know what I mean? You got some things that are within your reach.
Yeah. Yep. I know for me, music is like a love language for me. I know it's not in the book. Was not one of the love languages in the book, but it is for me, right? Like gospel music, praise and worship music, R&B music, Motown. Like it all depends on. Sometimes it just spas their music, because I love music and singing. And so recently, it's been Beyonce's YouTube Coachella.
Yes.
Oh.
What? That has got me. I turned into Beyonce wearing yellow with all those girls.
You see this comb, girl?
I need you to know. Give me 5 minutes. We got yellow in the wardrobe now.
I mean, but think about how powerful music is, Audrey, what you said.
Absolutely.
It's a love language. All around the world, you can have a relationship with somebody who lives in a country who don't speak the same language as you, but you guys can bond over the same song.
Absolutely.
That's how powerful.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So, like, that's what I tell brothers. And you think about it, most men don't think to create a playlist for songs to make them feel well. Women will do that easily.
Oh, yeah.
I tell brothers to do that. But I was like, it's the same thing is true. Like, you're gonna feel better. You gotta be. Here's the thing about mental health, and I say this all the time. You have to be on the offense, not the defense.
That's an
I
amazing
love that.
I think back in the day, you know, our generation, our brothers would make playlists. They probably would make them for us, but maybe they
On them tape.
some of those
That
some
right.
of those cassette tapes.
Recorded off the
these days.
radio.
They know how
Real
to do
mixtape,
it.
a legit mixtape. Yeah.
That part.
But you
They
know
know
what I think-
how to do it. They just got to now keep those for themselves or make 2 copies. Send me mine.
Send me the link.
Yep.
Well, I think it's the intentionality of it, right?
Absolutely.
It's being intentional to say, it's making it about you.
Yes.
And it's saying, okay, well, I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to create this because during my downtime or during my resting time or just when I need a moment, this is my go-to. This is what I'm going to listen to. So yeah, we do it. We did it before making cassette tapes. Oh God, everybody know what a cassette tape is? But yeah.
Google it. Okay, if y'all don't know, Google it. We ain't got time for that one today.
Exactly. You know, whatever it is, right? We made it for other people, but to be intentional, there's something different about the intentionality of it. To say, I'm going to, on purpose, I'm going to create this for this moment, for this time.
Because you're choosing you, and it's
absolutely
you. And I think for a lot of men don't choose themselves in that way.
Correct.
Why do you think that is, Purvis? Because you basically segued the question out my brain.
Well, you know what's funny? I was thinking about something Audrey said. I just had a brain fart, but I think about all the times we think about just the way life is set up. A man's strongest identifier a lot of times is in what he provides and what he produces.
Yeah.
Right? That's his strongest. You know, you think about Adam, you think about men are supposed to provide and produce. Like that's it. But there's so many. When you guys described yourselves, you said, I'm this. You ask a man, he's going to tell you probably 2 things.
Right. Maybe.
You're right. Maybe 3 if they good.
Maybe 3, right? But you know what's funny? I got to speak to a group of fathers in the height of COVID, right? You know, many of them lost their jobs, right? And I think, Archie, you were speaking about this earlier. I shared with them, I said, yo, but isn't it exciting? You get to be a father.
Yeah.
You get to be a father. You get to do something that you didn't get to do because you was always at work.
Yes.
It was like deer in headlights. Look, they didn't know that they were allowed to be something more than just a producer and a provider. And really, producing and providing is low-hanging fruit. You know what I mean? It's
That's
about understanding and discovering the aspects of who you are. Men don't take the time to be introspective. That's what they don't take time to be introspective and reflect about their lives and think about and even vision cast. Have a vision for the. I'm writing a book currently, and it's called Heal Forward. And women heal forward. Women heal with hopes of having a better future. Men heal retrospectively. Men heal to repair the past, but they don't know that you're supposed to heal forward as well.
Right. I love that.
Dude.
When are you gonna be done with that book, Purvis?
Listen, I'm gonna check myself into a hotel one weekend and just try to bash it out. I'm like 4,000 words in, so it's so much more that I gotta write.
There you go. Yeah.
Definitely
a great start.
No, I love it. Men heal retrospectively.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is we do understand that healing is going on. It just is in a different way. And
absolutely.
And for us to understand like this, I think is so helpful for many of us because we could be easy and just be, say, well, men don't do this and men don't do that, but they are attempting to heal. It just is, our healing process is a lot different. I just recently spent some time with my children this weekend, so I'm still in recovery right now. But with that, we talked about therapy. So I'm a mom to, 4 boys and my nephew, my daughter and my niece. They're the only 2 girls. And we talked about my mom passed away about 5 years ago. And it was like, we're talking about, we went to therapy. And, it doesn't have to be traumatic for us to go to therapy. Of course, none of them went to therapy. And we had the conversation. It's like, well, if one of y'all die, we have these conversations just so it's a natural thing for our family. But it's like, if one of y'all die, we're not going to no therapy. We just going to quit our job and one of the other ones going to take care of us. That's not going to really work. So I'm thankful that we had the conversation. But really just to remind them, like, y'all could go now. Go now. Because somebody gonna die sometime. Like, I'm not giving an expiration date, but we are not all gonna live forever. We love each other tremendously. And there's, a lot of laughter and everything that came with that conversation. But those moments that we have where it's like, you don't have to wait. And you said it, Purpose. We don't have to wait for tragedy to happen in order to say, let me get some tools right now. So it's the same thing like when we've got insurance for our car. You don't buy insurance the day after you got into an accident. You got that insurance already so that if something happens, you're prepared. And so my hope is that, I just shook my mommy finger like, you gonna go to that didn't work.
It didn't work for you?
No, it didn't work. They all grown and bigger than me now. So, they like, really, lady?
Like, okay. Whatever.
But Karen,
that part, I mean, they are respectful. I'll give them that. So they turn their head before they start saying crazy stuff. But it's one of those things that I really am hopeful. It's like, I don't want you to wait because I see what that effect is for certain gentlemen our age where, we're seeing so much loss when we think about the hip hop world and how many people we've lost in over the last 6 months. And who is here to grieve those lives? Other men, especially in hip hop. And so what do they do when now they're in a place that they have no idea of what to do with this grief and this emotion, and they will bleed out because they refuse to go get some help. And that's really the, one of the things that came to my mind. And, you hear this one passed away, that one passed away, and you're like, oh my goodness, the impact that they had on our lives. But then you think, who's left behind? Well, when it comes to our hip hop community, there are other Black men that are left behind who never dealt with the trauma from the first person who they lost. And now they got somebody who they lived a life with and don't know how to live without them. And that becomes, in my mind, when we think of male mental health, this is a state of emergency. When we see so much trauma in the land, when we see, I've got people who say, congratulations on the Derek Chauvin trial. And it's like, congrats, say what now?
Right.
Who? Say what now? What am I supposed to do with that? So it's a different thing where literally when we say it hits different, this is hitting our Black men differently because it's almost like you said, we got to normalize that whatever feeling that you feel is normal. It's not a negative thing. It's not a bad thing, but we've got to take control of the narrative. And some of us as women had to snatch that back and be like, wait a minute, y'all, don't bring that over here to the Black men in my corner. So if I'm, acting as queen for the kings in my life, I got to be able to be protected in a different sense. Why? Because y'all less scared of us right now.
Yeah.
But we ain't even gonna say nothing on that. That's a whole nother. That's
right.
That's all we're gonna say. But with that, it's so many different things that we understand. We are in a state of emergency, not just because of the lives of Black men, but also because of the mental health, where for every one person that we find that's got the vision board, that's gone to the therapy, that learned the language, we've got 15 more that are literally being lost in the wilderness. So how literally do we connect with them and for lack of a better word, save them from themselves, so to speak? I hate to say it that way, but I think it's sort of like to kind of point them in the right direction.
I think that's the journey, right? Once you've been healed, you have a responsibility to heal somebody else or teach them to heal, right?
Right.
So like that's the thing I try to empower men to, like, it don't stop with me. You next. You're the next purpose. For whomever else comes to see your life. And I think that's the thing, is like creating a culture of men healing, right? The only way we can do it is if other brothers who've been healed or who are on the healing journey show up.
Right. And tell their stories.
And stories.
Earlier in the conversation, you said that, and that's actually one of my favorite scriptures, Revelation 12:11. And they overcame the adversary by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they loved not their life as unto death. They refused to die, or let their testimony die, because they told somebody. They basically shared their roadmap with someone, so that they could find their way through and be reassured that they're not alone in anything that they're going through. Recently, with one of the young men I've had the opportunity to be a mentor to, I noticed he wrote that God was going to deliver him from anxiety and depression, but if he didn't, and then he threw up a whole series of funny looking emojis. So I immediately jumped on his post and said to him, sweetheart, first of all, I need you to stop professing that over yourself. Right. And you also have to remember that what you write also takes life, according to Habakkuk 2:2.
Come on now.
You got to be careful of what you say over yourself, about yourself, who you say you are. We're in a series in our faith community where it's knowing and embracing and walking out who God says that we are.
And the thing, and to add to that too, even if you do have anxiety or depression, whatever you have, it still doesn't take away from the value and the wonderful man that you are.
True.
That's just something that you're experiencing currently, but it's not your identity.
Right.
It is destination. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too, right? It's like where you are is where you are, right? But you have a vision for where you want to be. And I think that's the thing. It's like, that's the humanity. That's the dehumanization. That's where that comes into effect, is that a lot of men and even Black women aren't allowed to dream or to have a vision for the future. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. You have to be able to see your way out. When I was at my darkest place, when my dad died and I was in depression, the thing I thank God for the most is that I was able to, even if it was for 5 seconds, I was able to see my way out of the situation. And that imagination is the thing that helped me to get to where I'm at today. And it's always the thing.
Mm-hmm. It caused you to grow.
It caused me to grow. It caused me to have hope.
Yes.
Love it.
So that there's still hope. And I'm grateful that you said that in this space. So many people need a reminder, especially right now, that there is still hope. Yes. So that they're encouraged not to lay in the bed of hopelessness, even from what every last one of us has shared on this platform on tonight. Y'all know last year I lost my mother, and next week will be the 1st year anniversary of her passing. And I am grateful. Thank you so much. I am grateful for basically the pathway life had me on, where I was able to basically, in a quarantine situation where nobody could come see about me. It was just me and God in that room. Let me talk to you about mental fortitude.
Yes.
And what faith can do. I had to implement some things. I had to come up out of that fog fighting with what I already knew. As you said earlier in the conversation, Purvis, I made the conscious choice to heal forward. Yeah. And in this year, I look back and see how much I've accomplished by intentionally turning my pain into purpose.
Yes.
And to add to what you said, I'm able to speak openly now about my mother's passing because I never stopped talking about her.
Right.
Because she's still alive in me.
Now.
Yes.
So, yes, honey, look, can I be a picture of what healing forward looks like?
No, I love it. We have to end this conversation, but this was so awesome. Thank you, Purvis, for joining us and sharing your nuggets. Thanks, Karen, Nikita, for holding it down when my internet just want to
We
go
got
left.
you.
Got you, boo.
We got
But
you.
I didn't even know that it would continue streaming. I was like, thank you, Jesus. You got
Yes.
it.
Fingers crossed. Now, Audrey, I'm gonna put it right out there now. Dr. Purvis Taylor III. When the book does get done, we hope that you will come back.
Of course.
Join us so that we can help you promote that.
Absolutely.
Because we know that that's something that will be impactful to multiple communities. So
Yes.
welcome
Yeah.
to our Qurled Queens. So you started off as family for just one when we started on here, and now you got tribes on tribes.
If you a tribe mate, you know, and I hope to be able to host a conversation with you on my radio show platform as well.
There you go.
Would love to.
Awesome. So I'm going to let Purvis, you're going to have the final words for tonight, like any final words you want to leave for all the listeners, and even those who want to be listening to this on a replay, because you know it's going to be a lot of people listening to it on replay.
One thing I always say, and I think it's so important, you think about life, you think about struggles and challenges, and I have to remind myself of this today. No one is born ill-equipped, they're just born ill-informed. So that means we all have the tools we need to thrive in this life, to make it through those challenges. We possess them right now. There's nothing that anyone can give you. All we can do is highlight what's already within us. And so we have the tools to make it through our respective journeys. And we have everything we need for our respective journeys. The challenge is we start looking at other people's journeys and thinking we need to have those tools, but we don't need those tools for our journey. Right. And so no one is born ill-equipped, they're just born ill-informed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Purvis. That was a great way to end tonight's session. Love you. Can't wait to have you back again. Love you, Karen. Love you, Nikita. And I'm going to stop this recording now.
It's Qurled Queens for you.
Yes.